Okay, so I want to try to do a quick response here to Fred. That's Conference Report's most recent video called "What Good is God?" I did think this was an interesting video, and I wanted to further clarify some of the things that I was saying in some of my recent videos regarding the atheist-theist debate. To me, part of the problem with the atheist-theist debate is that it's really basically it's the dogmatists who are having the argument, not the people who are engaging in the sophisticated questions and the sophisticated problems. From my own perspective, as I would say we shouldn't be arguing for or against theism if by that we mean fantasy and a guy in the sky who sits on a throne and creates things and has made contracts and deals and will ensure salvation and all this kind of stuff. I think from many people's perspective, they would see me, certainly Christians, other people would see me as an atheist, whereas I would continue to try to suggest the only real worthwhile question from my perspective is, what are we to do with ourselves? How are we to understand the ultimate mystery that we are? I could try to just reduce it and say I'm just an animal that has evolved from natural evolution on a planet. That still doesn't answer the ultimate questions that I have, that I think other people have, of does this matter? Why is consciousness able to contemplate the ultimate questions, questions beyond the Big Bang? Like, what started that? How did it come into being? Was it a fluke? Was it a chance? What would chance mean? I mean, these sort of ultimate questions about, is my life simply the passing off of genetic material? See, I think this is sort of an interesting place to come into this, is to ask the question about, if we're just animals, and we say certainly we're continuous with animals, but if there is an emergent socio-historical phenomena that has come with language and culture, and now cultural evolution is rapidly accelerating, if that is all the case, it seems as if the critical question would be, we're not just like animals in the sense of dropping off offspring. I mean, tuna drop off tons of eggs. I mean, they propagate and are able to leave genetic offspring, I guess, in mass numbers. As you move up the scale, phylogenetic scale, right? I think you see that higher primates spend more time trying to raise. They spend more time binding, more efforts trying to raise their young. And then I think it becomes apparent that, those people who run around and, quotes, just drop their seed but do no parenting, not only do I think we want to say, okay, well, there's a way in which you've propagated yourself, but I think we want to say that a self or a person, as partly what we mean by symbolic and cultural, is that that person is the raising of that child in terms of values, beliefs, orientations, goals, sensibilities, all of these kinds of things. Now, if that's the case, it seems like in the human realm, what's important is a kind of transcendence beyond simple biological transcendence. It's beyond simply biological transcendence. That is, there are many people who don't even know about the children they have. As an example, there could be guys out there who have children who left their seed and produce children who don't even know about them, and by a strictly biological standard, you sort of say that was success. But I don't think that's what we want to say success is. I think we want to say that there are people who carefully raise their children and spend time and effort and concern in engaging them and in dialogue and in helping introduce them to the world and giving them uh, all kinds of values and orientations and assumptions and critical resources for reflection and things like this. Hopefully, a value base for feeling and compassion and care for others, all these kinds of things. You could even say, though, but there could be other people who don't have any children at all, who are actively trying to raise children themselves in every conversation they're in. And they start to see transcendence is a cultural transcendence. And now we're back to this larger question of, what ought we mean by God? Now, we could say, let's just get rid of the word completely, and let's use the word of the ground of being, the cosmic mystery of which we are a part. I mean, we could use all kinds of different expressions. I do think, I've said this in other videos, that I think, the orientation of saying, do not God, that to me, it doesn't make any sense. It's like saying, don't think of pink elephants. If you really don't believe in pink elephants, well, don't tell people not to think about them. You're just reminding people of it. If you really want to get rid of it, you just don't even talk about it. From my own perspective, again, I would entertain the real question being, what ought we mean by God? See, Spinoza was very interested in this question of, could we see, as were the Stoics, could we see nature, divine providence, harmony, order, ambiguous dance of merger and division, all these kinds of processes of, I guess, of orbit and gravity and balance and harmony, all these sorts of, I guess, ratios of proportionality that we find throughout the natural world. Can we see these as part of a divine order that we're participating in? Do we need a creator separated from the created? Can we have a kind of robust notion of a personal God that is personal, but the personal comes out of the problem of language and self-relation as it's been issued through culture and historicity? It's not just the question of, I think some of this has to do with this language. I watched that wonderful video that Fred had posted called In My Own Language of this woman with autism, and it was such a beautiful video. I think it's in my favorites. I think it's a fascinating video. But questions that I would want to raise for that is, can we see that even when we're sleeping and we don't have any conscious awareness, we're still fully human? That we don't want to define our humanity, or we don't want to define the sacredness of life in terms of the ability to think and speak and these kinds of things. It is about resonance. Life itself is sacred. But I do think all of those things said, we want to admit that there is something very odd about what makes humans somehow different than, I think, other creatures. We could say that categorically, right? It's everything from the dietary practices, is sort of the raw and the cooked. I mean, it's all of this kind of stuff. It's reverence for earlier generations, not just mourning the death of, say, a loved one. Do I think animals can mourn for the dead of a loved one, or some animal that they, quotes, grew and structurally coupled with, or something like this, to use Monterano and Varela's terms? Yeah, I think they perhaps could. Does a dog feel some sense of remorse? Yeah. But do they live in a historical world? I think all humans live in a narrative. And narrative is part of this mystery, that humans are caught in the need for a story about their ultimate origins and their ultimate ends. The thing that's so disturbing from my perspective of the contemporary low-visioned, individualist, atheistic orientations are that it's a story about that life sucks, nothing matters, who cares, we're all just animals, and you're really no different than a worm. It's just you live longer. I mean, it's these kinds of sense. It's the denial of our sense of responsibility, the denial of maybe the mystery of human community. I think human communities, right? It's not just that we're social animals. We are social animals, like other animals are social. But our sociality is a historicity and a non-egocentric allowing of the other to enter in. Right? We're always somehow haunted by the other from the very get-go. And I think for many people, it's this question of the ultimate other. Could God be radically other than being? If we are going to entertain God talk, let's not go, God, are you for it or against it? I mean, that's just really simplistic. Let's not just go, are you for or against the ridiculous notion? Yes, let's not shoot fish in a barrel. Let's get rid of all the dogmatic, ridiculous notions of God. And let's talk about what one might mean. Could one recover and salvage a notion of the gods, God, divinity, divine mystery, divine providence, highest mind, whatever terms you want to use, but there is something very cosmic going on, something absolutely mysterious, and I think something eternal that we're all participating in right now. Thanks. Check out Fred's video. Okay, thanks.